Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fish Market Academy, where we teach how to fish for gains. So in today's video, we'll be exploring the Kinetic Money lock drop, and if you found this video useful, do remember to like and subscribe to support the channel. Alright, let's get started. So today we'll be talking about Kinetic Money, and as usual, nothing I say is financial advice. So let's get started. What is Kinetic? So Kinetic is basically the first auto-repaying loan on Terra, which is similar to a CDP, which stands for Collateralized Debt Position Protocol on Terra. So what this means is that it allows users to borrow or basically mint synthetic stable coins on their collateral with no risk of liquidation. So typically when you are doing a collateralized debt position, for example, you deposit collateral into Aave, and then you borrow USD, there's a liquidation risk. But in Kinetic's case, there is no liquidation risk. And users get to spend their future yield by borrowing on Kinetic, while their debt is automatically repaid. So I'll go through an example of how this works. So Kinetic works similarly to Alchemix, which is another CDP protocol on Ethereum that also does self-repaying loans. So Alchemix calls it self-repaying loans, and Kinetic calls it auto-repaying loans, but they're all the same type of concept. So how does Kinetic actually work? So just now I mentioned about depositing collateral. In this case, we'll be depositing UST as collateral, and then we'll be minting KUST out. And we can only take out a percentage of our collateral value. So for example, if we put in 100 KUST, then we can only take out 50% cap based on their documents, which means we can take out 50k in KUST. So your UST collateral can be retrieved at any time by paying either the outstanding debt position, which is your KUST, or you can wait until the gain yield covers the debt position. Because when you deposit UST into Kinetic, they're going to take the UST on their back end, and then they're going to put it into Anchor protocol to earn yield. So your collateral is actually earning yield, which is actually paying off the debt for you. So this essentially allows users to withdraw their future yield to generate even more yield in present time. So one mechanism that Kinetic Money has is called Phaser, and it is essentially a native swap mechanism that allows for KUST and UST to be swapped 1-to-1 ratio regardless of what's happening in the market, specifically the KUST and UST peg on Astroport. So this 1-to-1 ratio is baked into the algorithm or into the protocol, and this allows Phaser to be a great way for arbitragers to arbitrage the pair, which is KUST and UST, back into peg. So one to $1 basically. And users can profit from buying up cheap KUST and phase it to UST in the event that KUST depegs. However, initially, the phasing of KUST to UST will take 3 to 4 days to disincentivize users from using it when the Astroport stable swap provides a 1-to-1 conversion. So let's go into a bit more details on how Phaser works, because it's a very important mechanism for the whole Kinetic Money ecosystem. So during this lock drop, the Phaser is actually seeded with 50% of the funds from the lock drop. So let's say the lock drop generates 20 million in TVL, then they will take the 20 million divided by 2, by 50%, and that's 10 million, and then that will go into the Phaser. And on top of that, when yield is generated by Kinetic, the yield will also go into the Phaser to increase the reserves of the Phaser, minus of course the protocol fees. So the funds in the Phaser will be deposited into Anchor, and then that will be used to help repay outstanding loans of all users, boosting the repayment rate beyond what the collateral generates. And assuming 1000 UST of funds in Phaser with a debt of 80% and a borrow rate of 50%, we sort of get the following table that shows the different debt utilization ratio as well as the total APY. Okay, let's go through the Kinetic launch phases. So the airdrop snapshot is done. The airdrop details I'll go through in the next slide. And the lock drop for Nucleus is starting on 31st of March. And the lock drop deposit ends in a few hours. If you're watching this video, it might be too late already. But you have 2 days to withdraw. Although I don't think there will be a lot of people withdrawing, but we shall see. And then we have the LBA, Liquidity Bootstrapping Auction, also known as Entropy phase, and that's on the 7th of April. And then after that, we will have the Kinetic launch, as well as the airdrop itself on the 12th of April. Okay. So for the Kinetic airdrop, there will be 11.2 million airdrop for 3 different groups of stakers and LP providers, mainly Terra and Anchor and Alchemix ecosystem users. And there is a minimum of $100 threshold for each address, and all snapshots for the airdrops have been taken on the 31st of October last year, and they will be distributed upon launch. And the KNTZ airdrops that are not claimed within 90 days will be reclaimed by the protocol and sent to the community pool, so do remember to claim your airdrops. So 6.4 million will go to Luna stakers, 3.2 million will go to ANC stakers, and then 1.6 million will go to Alchemic stakers. So do note that any Luna staked with a validator with 2% or more voting power will be excluded from the airdrop. So it's always important to decentralize and stake your Luna with validators that are not so dominant and have less than 1% validation preferably. So for phase 1 Nucleus, we have 31st March all the way to 6 April, and UST can be locked in exchange for KNTC, and then participants will be whitelisted for 4 days of early access to borrow KUST from day 1 before the initial debt cap is hit. So this is a very important reason why you want to participate in the lock drop, because I foresee that this KUST borrowing will be full very quickly once people can start getting and borrowing KUST. So users can deposit and withdraw UST at any time from day 1 to 5, but then no deposits can be done on day 6 and onwards, and only limited withdrawals will be allowed from day 6 to 7. Do note that if you do participate in the lock drop, only 50% of KNTC will be claimable upon launch, and then 50% will be a month later. So you can't get the whole 100% when it launches. Just something to take note of. And there will also be a boost if you actually lock for a longer period of time. So if you see in this diagram, if you lock for 3 months, that's the shortest duration, there is no boost. But if you lock for 12 months, there's a 8 times boost, which is a lot bigger than just a normal boost. So if you see from 3 to 12, it's a 4 times multiplier, but from the boost, you actually get 8 times, which is double the benefit if you just prorate them. So just now we were talking about how much you can borrow, and that would be 20% of what you deposit is your potential loan. So if you put in 100k, you can deposit 20k as your potential loan in KUST. And one of the benefits of participating in Nucleus, apart from just the one-time KNTC token airdrop, you also get ongoing swap fees from the KUST UST LP position as well as incentives, because they're gonna take your lock drop, which is in UST, and then swap into KUST, or more like they will mint KUST out of that, and then that will be LP'd together. So that's one of the benefits as well. And then of course you get pre-access to the Kinetic Vault to generate, to guarantee that you can borrow KUST before the debt cap hits. So for phase 2, also known as Entropy, users can deposit and withdraw UST at any time from day 1 to 4. This Entropy is basically the liquidity bootstrapping auction where you can basically buy KNTC. And this format follows similarly to both Astro and Mars protocol. So you should be familiar with this if you have participated in Mars and Astro. And similarly to the lock drop event, participants in this phase will also have 4 days of early access to borrow KUST from the Kinetic Vault. So you don't only have to deposit during the lock drop, you can also deposit during this phase 2 to get the KUST borrowing priority. And I do expect this priority to be fully used before it actually opens to the public. So if you want to get your hands on KUST borrowing because you can get higher APY, then you need to participate in this phase 1 and phase 2. So in phase 2, the price of KNTC is determined by the total UST deposited into the pool divided by 8 million KNTC tokens. So you have 8 million UST deposited means you have $1 per KNTC. And anyone who participates in this phase has made an active choice to buy KNTC for their UST, and all participants during this phase will also get KNTC at the same price. Okay, so let's explore the tokenomics. There will be a total supply of 100 million KNTC, and the TGE is 12th of April. So if we look at the emission schedule, there is no cliff for core contributors and advisors, and their tokens are linearly vested over 2 years. So this can be quite a worrying sign, because then they can technically just keep on selling every single day. So we have created a KNTC emission schedule, and you can see the emission schedule over here. And the token distribution details are here as well. So at launch, there's already 32% of the supply out, and by the first year, 61% of it will be out. And then year 2 will have 88%. So just something to take note of, that there is linear daily vesting for the core contributors and advisors. Okay, in terms of the token utility, the KNTC is of course the governance token and can be used to partake in governance. And KNTC stakers also receive a fee generated from the protocol. So in terms of the kinetic fee distribution, the protocol will charge a fee of 8% each time the yield is harvested from the vault, and the distribution of these fees will be controlled by governance as well. So if people who hold the tokens decide that 8% is too low, they can always increase it through a governance vote. So that's one of the somewhat purpose and utility for governance. And the staking will be available upon launch, which is very good because a lot of protocols don't really have usable staking upon launch. But for Kinetic, staking will be available immediately, and you can actually receive 37.5% of these protocol fees as well as other staking incentives right at the get-go, so that's pretty bullish. So if you look at the fee distribution, this is the initial fee distribution where you can actually see 50% of it goes into the dev fund and the community pool, like 25% each. But once the pool and the dev fund caps are hit, right, so they actually have a certain amount of KNTC that will go into there, and it doesn't need to be, it's not like unlimited, so there is a cap, and once this cap is hit, then all of it goes into KNTC stakers, and that is at 87.5%. so that's actually pretty high. So almost all of the fees actually go into KNTC stakers. So I would imagine if the yield is pretty high, then there will be quite a lot of yield to the KNTC stakers. So now we look at upcoming developments. So KNTC plans to launch a version 2 with more features such as CDP streaming, as well as adding of other yield strategies, enabling yield-bearing assets to accelerate repayment rate and insurance contract. So what this means is that, for example, let's say there's some really high degen farm like Astro UST, or maybe Astro itself does generate yield. So that could potentially be used to put as collateral in Kinetic, and then you can borrow against that. And because Astro might have potentially higher returns, higher yield than UST, then you can actually accelerate the repayment. But of course, that's something that needs to be considered due to the volatility of the price of Astro. So they say no risk of liquidation, but there is risk of the protocol being insolvent if the collateral that they hold drops too much. So that's something that they need to consider and weigh very carefully on the types of yield-bearing assets that they were to accept. And in terms of CDP streaming, it allows users to stream KUST from the CDP to another account or others to withdraw the CDP of other users' account. Some of the use cases could include, for example, if you're an employer and you have your collateral, your yield-bearing collateral, you could actually stream your KUST to your employee account. That means that they will just take from the collateral and then they just keep paying into your employee's account. So that's one example. And then another would be, for example, you do card payments directly from CDP. So you would deposit your yield-bearing assets, and then it will create a collateralized debt position that streams to repay directly into your credit card, for example. So that seems quite advanced and quite useful, but it's still too early to see whether that can actually be done in a useful way. So this is similar to Superfluid for those who are on the Ethereum chain, where you can actually receive income streamed directly into your wallet, and that can be pretty useful for employees in the future who are all in Web3 and they are all comfortable being paid through on-chain payments. And Kinetic can help process this and allow the employers to actually deposit yield-bearing assets to pay their employees. So this is actually a really cool idea. So if I have like 10 million in Luna, and Luna is a yield-bearing asset, Luna earns about 5% per year, so that's about 500k per year if at 10 million Luna, and 500k per year can be used to actually pay employees directly, and I don't have to worry about actually paying them by selling away Luna. So that can be pretty useful. And Kinetic will eventually want to provide insurance in the event of some kind of a fault or exploit, and this insurance contract will be funded by protocol fees in UST with an insurance cap. So once the cap is filled, then they won't be getting more money into that insurance pool anymore. Okay, so let's go through the demonstration for the lock drop. So I'm going to go over to Kinetic, and over here you can see that there's only about 3 hours left. So I had a long day at work, but I finally had the time to actually go and deposit my UST. So I'm just going to put in a small amount here. So for me, I'm just going to pretend that I'm not going to touch any of this amount for the next 3 months, because I think the market is not going to do very well in the next 3 months. And I'm just going to not buy anything. So if I'm not going to buy anything, my UST is not doing anything, I'm just going to put it in here for 3 months. So that's my rationale for going with 3 months. But of course, 3 months doesn't offer very good boost, so you might want to go with a higher amount of lock period if you want more boost. This is just for me, so you don't have to follow. So once you are done, just remember to click on the disclaimer and just know that it is irrevocable, and you just pray that there is no exploit during this entire process. That would be very, very detrimental. So just click on the 2 check boxes and then click on approve and confirm, and then wait for it to actually go through. And once that's done, you are officially participating in the lock drop, and you will receive 50% of your KNTC during the first day on 12th of April. So just to reiterate, Kinetic is the first CDP protocol on Terra, and it's going to open up many opportunities for the ecosystem. And potentially with V2 coming, that is actually very exciting because they allow for other yield-bearing assets to be added. And this sort of reminds me of Abracadabra a bit, where you can put in different yield-bearing assets, and these yield-bearing assets are kind of like auto-repaying loans in a way. And they are also going to come up with insurance plan to cover any potential faults, because this protocol can be a bit dangerous because of the way they create their synthetic stable coins. So an insurance will help to boost confidence and also help to cover any potential depegging or any potential faults in the future. And hopefully that will make sure that this protocol lives on for a very long time. And yeah, if you want to participate, you can either participate in Nucleus or Entropy to earn the KNTC free airdrop, and also get early access to the Kinetic vaults, which I think will be very high APR. So this is like better than Anchor because of the way they actually do your loans. You will put your UST in, and then after that you'll get KUST, which you can sell for UST to deposit back in. So it's kind of like Degen box in a way, and you get higher APY because of that. So ultimately, do your own research and invest with caution. So if you found this video useful, do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!
Baby fish do 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 do, baby fish do 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 do, baby fish do 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 do, baby